The scene inside a fraternity house at Penn State University on the night a pledge died after a night of excessive drinking seems to be becoming more clear. Today, 8 more members of the Beta Theta Pi made their first appearances on charges connected to the death of Timothy Piazza. Among those charged, the frat brother who made the 911 call 42 minutes after it was determined that Piazza was seriously hurt. Piazza actually spent nearly 12 hours in peril on that night in February after drinking far too much. Downstairs twice, hitting his head multiple times on multiple objects. He ended up dying 2 days later from a traumatic brain injury. A total of 18 members of that fraternity have now been charged in connection with his death. Everything from furnishing alcohol to minors, hazing, assault, and involuntary manslaughter. President Eric Barron says excessive drinking and not hazing is not a Penn State problem, but a national epidemic.
I never want to do this ever again, okay? But if you look at every reasonable measure, short of us sitting in that house on private property, privately managed, with us, having to be invited in, short of that, if people are willing to hide that type of behavior and protect that level of secrecy, I do not see how it is the university will ever know. I think we've had 2 very powerful messages. Beta will never come back. And 2, we have some young men in very serious legal trouble. And I hope that's a profound message to every single student, and not just on this campus, but to every campus.
Lori False is the deputy editor of the Center Daily Times, and she joins me from State College, Pennsylvania. Lori, I know that you have sort of an idea of this appearance today. They did something unusual. There were appearances made last week and then appearances made today, all concerning the same group of 18, but split up. I wanted to get a sense of the kids. I mean, these are teenagers, many of them, arriving, for something extraordinarily serious. Can you describe sort of the scene for me? Who was there for them? Who was there for any of the parties involved?
The young men who were involved were coming in and coming out with some of them with family members, most of them with attorneys. They were, by and large, seemed to be taking it seriously. There were a couple who may not have quite gotten it.
So when you say that, I'm looking at pictures, and the faces look extremely stoic, as though these young men know how serious their lot is right now. Were there others who seem to think this is just, this is going to be a walk in the park?
There were a couple who just in some of the pictures that my photographers got just seemed to maybe not quite get their part in it.
Maybe didn't look so contrite. Is that what you mean? As they appeared, maybe contrition wasn't the first thing on their mind?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is the first step in the process. The preliminary arraignments are these are guys who have not been to jail. They have been released on unsecured bail. There are a lot of ways that this might seem kind of theoretical at this point.
I can imagine most teenagers would think something this serious is more theoretical than real, really happening to them. Were there any university representatives who were at the court? Are they steering clear when they're not actually part of the arraignment?
This is not a university thing. The university has not been named in any way in any of the
and no representatives there. They're staying out of this, right?
At this point, yes.
And what about the fraternity, Beta Theta Pi? Any reps there as well?
I don't believe so, but there was a little bit of conjecture on that. I'm not sure if...
And the president is facing charges, and the fraternity as an entity is facing a manslaughter charge. Hold for a moment, Lori. I want to just mention, last night we had the attorney for Timothy Piazza's family on this program, and he said that they plan to cast a pretty wide net in terms of civil litigation to make sure that everybody who is responsible for his death will be held accountable. And I think we should probably mention this is not the only case involving alcohol and fraternities and questionable behavior at Penn State. But this next one involves a lawsuit. James Vivenzio is suing Penn State University and the fraternity Kappa Delta Rho, claiming that he was hazed and forced to drink excessive amounts of alcohol. Vivenzio says he reported the hazing twice, but it wasn't until he called the police and a private KDR Facebook page made national news because it showed pictures of seemingly unconscious naked women that Penn State finally investigated his claims and kicked the fraternity off the campus for 3 years. James is kind enough to join me now, along with his attorney, Aaron Freewald. They are in Philadelphia. Thank you to both of you. James, I was reading through some of the details of your hazing, and I know hazing is bad, and I know it involves alcohol and excessive behavior, but yours is unconscionable. Can you describe for our viewers some of the things that you say in your suit happened to you?
Absolutely. I was force-fed liquor numerous times, just about multiple times a week. Abused. I was punched in the face, burned, mentally and physically abused. And when I reported it to Penn State, they did nothing.
So am I correct if I list out some of these allegations? You were forced to drink to the point of vomiting, whereby a group of you would be forced to stand around a trash can and drink until you vomited before you could pass the bottle, that you were forced to consume cat food and urine and vomit, that you were forced to do push-ups and sit-ups in your own vomit. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely.
How?
It was
as this
terrible.
was happening, were you asking others, like, is this normal? And were people telling you that it's standard operating procedure at your fraternity, other fraternities all across the country? Like, how are they characterizing this stuff?
They were characterizing it as normal behavior in the fraternities. As I like to say, it wasn't just my fraternity that was doing hazing. As we can see in this case as well, hazing is across the board.
So Aaron, that brings me to you. As his attorney, I'm curious about what you are seeing playing out in the news this week and whether it will factor into your case or whether your case will factor into that case. How do you see it?
Well, I think they are very closely related. You know, of course, this is a terrible tragedy for the Piazza family, for this young man and his family. And one of the things that strikes us so powerfully about what we're learning as all this unfolds is how preventable this really was. Because James is lucky. He's a survivor of hazing in a system at Penn State and no doubt at many other universities around the country where they tell you that there is no hazing. The university gets all the students together before all this process starts and says there's no hazing. We have zero tolerance for it. It's not going to happen. But they know it's happening. And James here really is a whistleblower. He brought this to the attention of the university multiple times, and they ignored it. He showed evidence of, text messages and images that he collected on his phone to show them. This was all ignored. Had they paid attention, we feel strongly that perhaps this tragedy wouldn't have occurred.
So I want to read this from the representatives for Kappa Delta Rho. It's a statement that they gave us. The National Fraternity of Kappa Delta Rho is engaged in active litigation with Mr. Vivenzio. Thus, the National Fraternity will not comment on that litigation or any statements made by Mr. Vivenzio. However, the National Fraternity rejects any conclusion or conclusions that Mr. Vivenzio's claims are in any way related or similar to the unfortunate, untimely, and tragic death of Timothy Piazza. James, can I ask you, in my business, we report time and time again about this kind of thing happening, whether it's alcohol leading to death, alcohol leading to rape, partying and culture leading to rape, a lot of it in the Greek system, a lot of it involving campus activity. And it makes the news all the time, and yet it continues to be on the news. Do you see any end in sight, given the fact that you're bringing it to light, you're saying what happened, you're a whistleblower, as your lawyer says, the criminal case is ongoing in a separate instance. Do you see it making any difference?
I absolutely do, but I really think there needs to be a culture change from top to bottom to really get this problem out of the universities. I mean, the fact that there's light on the subject is really bringing hazing out of the darkness that it tends to live in. But if there truly isn't a change of culture and a change of the way that we're accepting this to happen, it will never change.
And more
James, I
people will die.
appreciate. Well, I appreciate both of you, James Vivenzio, Aaron Freewell. Thank you both for coming on the program. And I'm sorry it's under these circumstances, but I do appreciate your insight, and the best to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Back right after this.
Liberty Mutual stood with us when a fire destroyed the living room. We were able to replace everything in it.
Liberty did what?